Good morning. I want to thank everybody for joining with us here today. In particular, I'm proud to be joined by Senator Joan Huffman, who's been one of the leading advocates in the Texas Senate and in the Texas Capitol in making sure that we have criminal justice reforms that will make our community safer. Also, I'm proud to join with Nicole Kristoff of Crime Stoppers. Crime Stoppers has been at the forefront of helping people around this particular community, around the state of Texas, but also in the Texas Capitol, making sure that Texas as a state is stepping up and passing laws that will make our communities safer. And that's why I'm here today, is to sign one of those laws that was passed that Crime Stoppers has had some experience with, but Joan Huffman has been a leader on. And it is a law that cracks down on fentanyl. Fentanyl is one of the deadliest drugs on the street. It is almost 100 times more potent than morphine and about 50 times more potent than heroin. Just 2 milligrams of fentanyl is a lethal dose. And get this, in just the past, or let's say first 6 months of this year, just the Texas Department of Public Safety seized more than 320 pounds of fentanyl. And that is almost a 1,000% increase over the amount of fentanyl that a DPS seized in the same 6 month period last year. And here's the deadly danger of the amount they've seized. The amount of fentanyl that DPS has seized just in the first 6 months of this year is enough to kill more than 70 million people. Put a different way, the number of lethal doses that just the DPS has seized is enough to kill every man, woman, and child in the states of Texas and California combined. And understand this also, and that is the amount that was seized by the Department of Public Safety does not include what may have been seized by the Houston Police Department, by federal law enforcement agencies, et cetera. So if you look at all of the doses that have been seized just by those organizations as well as the Border Patrol, it adds up to, I think, more than 150 million deadly doses just this year alone. And I mention Border Patrol because one key reason why we're seeing such a dramatic increase in the amount of fentanyl coming to Houston, coming to Dallas, coming to other urban areas across the state, as well as going across the entire country, is because of the massive amount of fentanyl that is coming across our border. Now, some drugs that people, including high school and college students, buy off of the streets are laced with deadly amounts of fentanyl. The Houston Forensic Science Center found that fentanyl was being added to ecstasy and other kind of party drugs that target teenagers and young adults. Well, I'm about to sign a law that is intended to crush the spread of fentanyl in Texas. It cracks down on the manufacturing and the delivery and distribution of fentanyl. The punishment for this is a third-degree felony, which makes it one of the most stringent drug laws in the state of Texas. Depending upon the amount that's either manufactured or distributed, it can lead to life in prison. I want to express once again my gratitude to Senator Huffman and the entire legislature, as well as Houston Crime Stoppers, for their leadership on this issue. Now, before I sign the bill and before I pass the mic, while we are in Houston, I want to mention something else that both Senator Huffman as well as Crime Stoppers has been actively involved in, and that is the urgent need to pass bail reform in Texas. It's essential to have safety and security in our communities to pass bail reform. Get this, so it was voted out of both the Texas House and Texas Senate committees in the regular session, but it did not have a vote on the House floor because the Democrats walked off the job. In the special session, the Senate passed it out, but because Democrats are not showing up for work, it has not received a vote in the Texas House of Representatives. And here's the most important part. It's my understanding that since the Democrats broke quorum near the end of May, just a few months ago, 7 Texans have been killed by criminals who are out on bail who should not have been out on bail. So while the Democrats are playing political games, the safety of our communities are at risk. It is time for the Democrats to end their partying in Washington, D.C. and get back to Texas and pass bail reform and other measures that will make our communities safer. But for now, I'm about to sign a law that will make sure that in Texas, we are cracking down on fentanyl in an unprecedented way. The crackdown on fentanyl in Texas is now law.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'm going to give this to you.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you.
Senator Huffman.
Yes, thank you so much for Crime Stoppers for hosting us, and of course for all the work that you do in Houston and the attention that you have brought to critical issues that affect the safety of my constituents and all the citizens of Texas. Governor Abbott is right. We needed to crack down on fentanyl. You know, our best legislation comes when we speak to our constituents, and from the heart, they tell us something that's going on in Texas that tells us that we have to do something. And my idea to increase the penalty enhancement for fentanyl came from some constituents, a family who woke up one morning to find their young college-age son dead in his bed. Now, he may have accidentally ingested fentanyl. As Governor Abbott said, the Forensic Center is telling us that they are finding fentanyl in some of the party drugs. Sometimes kids do that. This is killing our children. This fentanyl is pouring in over the border, a porous border. DPS tells us this. They are confiscating more and more fentanyl at the federal level and at the state level. And this bill doesn't try to get to the users, all right? We want to get to those who are distributing this drug, who are responsible for killing our young people. And this is a good step to ensure that they will spend a minimum, if they distribute more, over 200 grams, at least 15 years, up to 20 years minimum in prison, up to life in prison. It's a very strong, powerful tool for our judges. And let me add, I hope they use it. As far as for bail reform, again, I have to give Crime Stoppers thanks. They have been accumulating data. All of you in the press here, know many are from Houston. You know what is going on in our city. I'm angry. How can we let this keep happening? The bill that we have passed out of the Senate and the constitutional amendment is targeted at violent, repeat offenders who are being released over and over again to kill people on the streets. And it's not just murder. Governor Abbott referred to the many that have been killed. 7 is too many in my book since special session began. But what about the robberies, the rapes, the burglaries? It's not just murder. It's serious crimes that affect our everyday life and the way that we live our life. You should be able to walk into a gym without getting shot as someone wants to steal your car. You should be able to hold your baby in your arms without being shot and your baby being shot. You should be able to go to a restaurant in Houston in the evenings and not look over your shoulder to see if someone is following you into your home and following you into your driveway, tie you up, and ransack your house. We don't have to live like this. We need to have accountability, transparency, and common sense being used by our judges here in this county, and they are not doing that. This bill will force them to do it. It's an important legislation. The SJR, the constitutional amendment, will give the voters a chance to decide if they think that the worst of the worst should in fact be held without no bond. But the voters aren't going to get a chance to vote on that. The ballot draw for the constitutional amendment is this afternoon, but this constitutional amendment will not be available for a November ballot because the Democrats ran to Washington. They didn't get a chance to vote on this. And that's sad. That's sad for the people of Harris County, for Houston, and this entire state. So I'm with Governor Abbott 100% on this. Come back and work. And look at this seriously. This is not a partisan issue. passed out of the Senate 22-0, with the 4 Senate Democrats who remained voting for this bill, including Senator John Whitmire, who represents Houston and has been the longest serving senator, and has been a longtime chair of criminal justice. This bill was compromised, worked on, it's common sense, it needs to pass, but it needs to be done for the people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now for Nicole with Crime Stoppers.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Governor Abbott, for allowing Crime Stoppers to serve as host for the signing of this important bill. Crime Stoppers has been working for 40 years in the Harris County area, solving and preventing crime. While there are many issues that we face on a daily basis, the issue of fentanyl has been of particular concern. You were correct, Governor Abbott, when you said the lives are at stake because of the dangerous drugs like fentanyl pouring into our communities. We know that when criminals find something that they can exploit and use and sell, they will, regardless of the lives that it destroys or takes. As an organization, we work tirelessly to educate the community via our podcast, The Balanced Voice, our school and community presentations, and our brand new pamphlet that's Drugs in a Snap, a 5-step fentanyl poisoning prevention plan. We take this extremely seriously. If we educate the community about the things that they could become victims of, that solves crime. That prevents crime. We take it very, very seriously. But we cannot do this alone. We cannot. We need our elected officials to stand up for Texans. We are lucky, extremely lucky, that in the great state of Texas, we have a governor that is brave enough and bold enough to do what's right for all Texans. Public safety should not be a partisan issue. It should not. It affects everyone, regardless of race, religion, creed, or party affiliation. That is one reason why we are so thankful and appreciative of this bill that passed with full support. This bipartisan bill passed with full support. We cannot thank you enough. Our team has received phone calls from countless parents and families, not just in Texas, but across the United States, who have lost their children due to drugs that are laced with fentanyl. And they say, even the ones that are not Texans, they are watching Texas and Governor Abbott for the stance that he is taking on this issue, and hopes that it follows across the United States. Even though Rania is not here, our CEO Rania is traveling. She sends her extreme thanks and appreciation, as does the rest of the staff at Crime Stoppers. We appreciate you immensely. Thank you all for joining us. I hope you have a nice day.
Thank you very much. We'll take a few questions.
Governor, question about schools. Why not let schools require masks for kids under 12, knowing that COVID cases and hospitalizations are on the rise again in Texas?
Sure. First and most importantly, everyone needs to take serious the spread of COVID. And there are different ways to do that. The foremost way is to make sure that everyone receives a vaccine, which is the best way to reduce the spread of COVID. And then separate from that, everyone has had more than a year to master all the safe strategies that they can choose that's best for them and their family members. We're past the time of government mandates. We're into the time for personal responsibility, and that's exactly what we will do.
Governor Abbott, given that the Democrats have said they're not coming back before the end of the special session, what can you do, if anything, to try to save the reason that this whole session was called, like the bill is?
Two things. One is there have been a slow trickle of Democrats coming back. Harold Dutton came back, I think, yesterday. Another Representative Cortez came back, I think, yesterday. Could have been the day before. There are others who are tired of their escapade to Washington, D.C., and they heard exactly what Senator Huffman said, and that is there are reasons to give back, such as bail reform, such as teacher retirement pay, such as property tax reduction, such as making sure they actually even fund the legislative branch of government. And so there are reasons why they may come back. But if they don't, I'm committed to calling special session after special session after special session every 30 days until we do get these items passed.
And Senator Huffman, any chance for negotiation on some of the items that some of the Democrats say they do not like? The idea that nonprofits be restricted from paying bail for some people? Any open for
This bill has actually already been highly negotiated by many parties, and I have made many changes to the bill as it first appeared in regular session. The bill is in great shape now. It has been already passed bipartisan in the Senate, and I continue to pray and hope that the House Democrats will do the right thing and vote for this bill and get it to the people.
I'm going to add to that by saying this, and that is, there were compromises made on this bill before the Democrats broke quorum and left again. And to get compromises and then to leave and break quorum and not come back, and then even worse, to go up to Washington, D.C. and to completely lie about what's going on and to misrepresent about what the bill does causes them to lose credibility in the Capitol and makes it even more difficult for the members of the legislature to work with them because of the lies that they have stoked. And it's very inappropriate what the Democrats have done, and it causes them to lose credibility.
Governor, are you drawing a direct line then when you talk about bail reform, the lives lost between the Democrats having left, not voting on anything, and people having lost their lives?
Yeah, listen, if this bail reform had become law during the regular session, which it had the votes to go into law effect immediately because it had the 2/3 vote that was needed to be able to get the constitutional amendment passed, lives could have been saved. But get this, every day that we don't have this bail reform passed, which now means it's going to be months perhaps, there's going to be more people who not just lose their lives, but as Senator Huffman was talking about, who will be victims of crime. So there will be people who will be harmed. There may be people who will lose their lives. There will be people who are victims of crime because the Democrats are taking time off in a vacation in Washington, D.C.
Two more questions. Governor Singer from the Chronicle, you pointed out the increase in fentanyl that's being captured in Texas or seized in Texas, and I'm sure you know how many more people are dying from opioids. As that's been happening, there's been a call for other strategies to help users be safer and get to a point where they can get off drugs, including stuff like cleaning needle exchanges or safe injection sites. What's your position on those kinds of programs?
So there actually have been, as you're kind of pointing out, there have been multiple issues that have been raised and discussed, and I think some that were passed, and you'll know this session it was passed.
Yes.
So Senator Huffman will know some of the things that were passed because we do understand there are other angles that we can take here, but I'll let Senator Huffman talk to it.
Right, and we did pass the opioid abatement bill. There's going to be millions, hundreds of millions of dollars being brought down from the national lawsuits against the pharmaceutical companies. Now we have a council in place that will distribute, and it's a lot of money, to locals and to the state, and those are all have to be targeted for opioid abatement. So treatment, counseling, the very things that you're thinking about to really take care of the core of the problem, the cause of the problem. But we do want to be able to punish those who are still distributing, and that's why the bill was targeted for the distributors, not the users. We have plans in process to help those who are addicted.
Would that include stuff like fentanyl test strips so that if someone is in a position where they're using these kind of drugs, they're not going to go accidentally take the fake pill that has been laced with this poison?
I have not heard specifically of that, but that sounds like a grand idea and certainly should be something that's considered. Yes.
Question?
Senator, you've heard this argument before, but it was made yesterday by your former Senate colleague, Rodney Ellis at Commissioner's Court, is now Precinct 1. He claims he opposes bail reform because it would allow wealthy defendants to pay even a very high cash bond, while low-income defendants could not make that bond, even if they had committed a serious offense or were accused of a serious offense. What's your response to that?
Well, if the constitutional amendment would pass, then a high-risk violent offender could not be released no matter how much money they had, because then if clear and convincing evidence were shown, they could be held at no bond. That's why the constitutional amendment is such a critical part of this reform package.
Thank you very much, and thanks again to Houston Crime Stoppers.